Good morning to everyone. This is Wednesday, March the 9th, and you have joined Education Full Instruction. And we welcome all of you today. And I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Sapicki, Dixie, Griffey, Harris, Haston, Hicks, Manis, McKenzie, Parkinson, Reagan, Rudder, Sparks, Warner, White, Vice Chair Lady Weaver, Chair Lady Moody. Madam Chair Lady, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do any of the members have any introductions or recognitions you'd like to make? All right, Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to get my colleagues to sit down here on the front row with me, but for some reason, they just will not sit with me. I don't know what I've done, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Bill number 5 is going to be one that maybe
Right. All right, Representative Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Chair Lady Moody. I would like for us to recognize and welcome students from Stewart County Schools participating in the Day on the Hill with the Rural Health Association from Tennessee. Let's make them welcome.
Yes, welcome. And I also have a note to recognize that with us today, we have students from WGU Tennessee. If you'll wave, stand up for us. Thank you for joining us today. All right, members, seeing no other recognitions, as is our custom, if those of you that would like to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. And I will see, first of all, we may have a couple of things to clean up on the calendar for anybody that may be here for something in particular. Right now on House Bill number 2 on the calendar, House Bill 2153, the sponsor. All right, I'll take that back. We've got someone to cover. The sponsor was presenting bills in several committees today, but we will go back now to number 1, back on our calendar. Number 1, House Joint Resolution 0813 has been requested to be rolled 1 week. All right. Thank you, Chairman Crawford. Thank you. All right, number 2, House Bill 2153. I recognize Leader Lambert. You have a motion and a second, sir.
And Madam Chairman, and I apologize, I am ready to present the bill, but if I could be rolled 2 spaces, they're bringing me the binder on the bill, and I would prefer to have that in front of me if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Without objection, roll 2 spaces. Hang on, I skipped a page. Okay. Number 3 on our calendar is House Bill 2553 by Chairman Hurt. You need a motion and a second, please. You have a motion and a second, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think we have an amendment for this legislation.
All right, will you tell us that code, please?
Yes, ma'am. 014819.
All right, the motion is amended. Would you like to, added to the bill, would you like to explain the amendment first?
I'll be glad to. This is just an amendment that was worked on by the committee attorney with discussion to make sure we satisfied the true intent of the bill.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you. The question's been called. Without objection, we'll add it to the bill. And now, Chairman, you may proceed if you need to add any other comments.
No, ma'am. This is House Bill 2553 is just seeking to provide a virtual option to adult high schools.
All right, members, with that, I see Representative Sparks has a question.
I just want to ask the representative, some of these rural areas, which I don't have a rural area, but if they don't have access to broadband, I mean, how are they dealing with access with online instruction in those areas?
Chairman?
And that would be an individual one-by-one basis. I really don't know. I know a lot of times there's in the closest community, there may be access to broadband through a library or something like that. Other than that, I would guess they would just need to find access or maybe make the trip to not use the virtual option and have to make the trip
Yes, sir.
to the.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions before okay, Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Chair Lady Moody, and I support your bill. But for the sake of the record, as well as those in the audience, could you give us kind of a thumbnail of what your bill is doing in general?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you for that. And currently, we have adult high schools, and the goal of this is just to provide them a virtual option to be able to do this online and have the virtual option, but still meet the state board standards, but to have that virtual option in order to pursue their GED or HiSET.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Dixie.
Guess I'll just pick one. I got a quick question for you. Is the reason that we're having to do this bill is because of the bill that we passed last year? We're doing a special session where you couldn't have virtual school over a certain amount of days, or is this just something new that we're doing?
Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The way I understand it, this would just be a new option added to the adult high schools.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair.
I see a hand up about the same time. Representative Warner, do you mind? All right. Representative Parkinson, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, thank you, Representative Warner. He's a fellow East Winger. I want to thank you for bringing this legislation and actually want to sign on to the bill. One of the things that I mentioned in the previous special session was that, we should not throw the baby out with the bathwater in regards to virtual education, especially with everything we've learned in it. We've learned what not to do, and take the good things that we did learn and build on those things. And it's interesting, the dynamics of the state legislature anyway. When virtual learning was first introduced, during Race to the Top, all the Democrats hated it, right? And then when COVID hit, all the Democrats loved it and the Republicans hated it. And so now, you're bringing something that's specifically for adults. I understand, but I appreciate you bringing this but I do believe that we need to make sure that we build upon those good things that came out of virtual learning. And because at some point, regardless how you feel about it, virtual learning is going to be the way, and all of our college students are doing it. And so, all of our other students need to be prepared to go into college, to do it also. Thank you, man. Thanks for bringing the bill, and I actually want to sign on to it.
Thank you. Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just agree with that. I think handled the appropriate way, there is a good use for virtual learning. And again, as we learn, as we move through these times, we'll do what we can to benefit from that. I also want to say, I'm not sure if you may have already signed on. I know we had some sign-ons last week. I was thinking you were one, but if not, I'll let you know for sure. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. All right. I see no other comments made. I'll entertain a question. All right, question's been called. Without objection, we will be voting on House Bill, and I turned the page too soon. House Bill 2553. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You move on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you. All right, item number 4 on our calendar, House Bill 2468 by Representative Baum. You are recognized. You have a motion and a second. Is there an amendment?
I think there is, yes.
And please tell us that code so we can be sure.
014266.
All right, that's what I have. All right, you have a motion and a second on your amendment. And I see it rewrites the bill, so we will any objection to adding the amendment to the bill? All right, we have a question. All in favor of adding this amendment to the bill, say aye. Any opposed? All right, you are in proper order.
Thank you, Chair Lady Moody. This is a bill that would make several changes to Tennessee code governing charter schools. Some of these changes are probably relatively minor. I've got a list of about 5 or 6 of them that I thought I'd briefly mention. The first one says that if a charter school applicant does not plan to provide transportation services for its students, then it doesn't have to submit a transportation plan in its application. A second change says that if a charter school administrator or organizer operates charter schools in an LEA, then when it has a new application for an additional charter school, the application process must review the performance of the existing charter schools of that entity. A third change says that if the LEA changes the grade bands that attend elementary school, middle school, and high school, if a change is made in that, then within 120 days, the LEA must tell the charter school of that change, must inform the charter school of that change. Okay, sometimes charter schools are fully subscribed. They have more students who want to attend them than they have seats. When that occurs, the charter school develops a lottery that gets approved at the state level. An additional change through this bill says that the charter school can give additional weight to students who are at risk or economically disadvantaged in this lottery. Sometimes charter schools are not fully subscribed and they have open seats. This bill would place some limits on the number of students who could attend a charter school from outside the LEA. If the charter school has open seats and those seats will not be filled by students from within the LEA, then this bill says that the charter school cannot enroll more, cannot have a student population that has more than 25% of its students from outside of the LEA. And of course, no student from outside of the state, outside of a state line, could cross a state line. And then maybe the last change through this bill has to do with issues of non-compliance. This bill says that if a charter school is somehow in non-compliance with existing laws, that the authorizer of the charter school must provide an intervention policy or plan to the charter school so that they have a chance to respond and make the necessary corrections, unless the non-compliance is sort of an emergency type situation. The kinds that are mentioned in the bill would include fraud, financial fraud, then no intervention policy needs to be provided, or if some kind of a health or safety issue arises. But if it's some kind of a non-compliance issue that doesn't rise to that level, the charter school gets the opportunity to hear about the instance of non-compliance, gets the opportunity to try and remedy the situation before its charter is revoked.
Thank you for that explanation. I see we're getting a list of, if you want to be on the list, please let us know. I see, yes. Also, just for the committee's information, there is someone here if you need to call someone up to add what they know to. But right now, we will start with Representative Parkinson.
Hey, thanks, Madam Chair. To the sponsor, some of these changes are I think are good changes. What did you name all of the changes, or is this it?
Well, the bill does have some additional sections, some of them that I didn't mention if you want to hear more. Have to do with the enrollment preference of students into the charter school for employees of the charter school. If the charter school has an employee who has a child who wants to enroll, they're permitted to give that student some preference. Let's see what else. There is a provision that discusses what would happen if the charter school becomes financially insolvent. Its property and equipment would go back to the LEA. That's a section in here.
And
Yes, Representative Parkinson.
thank you, Madam Chair. Now, with these proposed changes, do these also pertain to the state charter commission and the Achievement School District?
I don't believe any changes have to do with those governing bodies, no.
Well, you know, they are LEAs,
Okay, yes.
so that's a yes.
I don't believe that it makes any change to their composition or what they can do or what they can't do.
And I'm a little unclear, Madam Chair, can we go out of session with legal because if the state charter commission is an LEA, which it is, and the Achievement School District is an LEA, based on what I was getting from you, just so we're clear, just what I was getting from you, you know, there was some language in there that said that your interventions have to be made, you know, by the LEA, and something about property going back to the LEA and things of these nature. So these entities are LEAs. So can we get clarity on that, Madam Speaker? I mean,
With-
Madam Chair, I guess I promoted you.
Thanks or no thanks. But yes, with no objection, we'll go out of session. And legal, we would like to hear from you.
Katie Robertson, Office of Legal Services. Can you repeat your question, please?
Sure. With the sponsor's testimony, he made mention of LEAs. And so I wanted to know if these changes to charter schools also have the same application that they would with a public LEA, well, a local LEA, as they would with the state LEAs that exist.
The bill only applies to public charter schools.
Yes, Representative.
And thank you for that. You know, so the Achievement School District charter schools are public charter schools. So that means that all of these changes would also apply to the Achievement School District and the State Charter Commission, because those schools are public charters also. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And if you want to go back in session, unless somebody else has questions. Oh, I'm sorry, someone else has a question for legal.
I think Chairman White, you had a question for legal.
Yeah, the
Or
Charter
comment.
Commission is an authorizer, so I would assume that an authorizer, if it falls under the Charter Commission also. The ASD is also an LEA, an authorizer, but they have a little bit of unique rules there, so I'm not 100% positive, but I would say yes. But we could check on ASD.
Representative Dixie, did you have a question for legal? No. Okay. Any other questions while we're out of session? All right, seeing none, we're back in session. And back to our list, Representative Dixie, you're next.
Thank you, Madam. I feel like I can't get up here. I feel like a little kid in a big stool. I have a question for you. You made a statement about if the charter schools were to go out of business or no longer go into existence, that it would go back to the LEA. So I think that what you're referring to is Section 3, F number 2. And it says if the charter school is closed for any reason, then the public charter school is responsible for all debts of the public charter school. The authorizer shall assume the debt from a contract or goods or service made. And I think you understand where I'm going with this. And so in Nashville, we had a charter school that went out of town, and it left the Metro Nashville public school system with a $500,000 debt, holding the bag. And the teachers and the vendors still had to get paid, and we paid that bill. So my question to you is there a way that we can add that a charter school should have a surety bond to actually protect taxpayers instead of saying that the LEA is responsible for all these debts? I'll take that as a yes. No, I'm just joking, but this is seriously, I do want to know that this would definitely protect the taxpayers. And I just wanted to know if you thought that would be feasible, and if it is, it may be something you would be amenable to putting into this legislation.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
the bill does not address surety bonds. And so if that's something that someone were interested in adding, then it's not currently in the bill. No.
Yes, Representative Dixie.
Yeah, I know it doesn't address it. That's why I asked the question, but I think that we should put it in there to protect the taxpayers, because right now we have our charter schools have multi-million contracts with out there, and the LEA could possibly be holding the bag for this. And I don't think that's fair to the LEA, because that money could be going to other places that really need it, to give resources to schools that really need it, but instead they're paying for a defunct charter school. And this is not something that could happen. It has happened, and it's happened multiple times. And so I think that you should look into this to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And how can we protect our LEAs and the taxpayers, so we're not using money in frivolous ways, and being a good student, a good steward of our money.
Yes, you do bring up the issue of what happens if a charter school closes, and we've talked a little bit about that. You are right. In Section 3, it says that unencumbered funds from the charter school would revert back to the authorizer. Equipment purchased with public funds would revert back to the LEA, and the authorizer shall not assume the debt from a contract for goods and services made between the governing body of the public charter school and a third party, except for debt that is previously detailed and agreed upon in writing by the authorizer and the governing body of the charter school. So there is some language in here that's designed to protect the public, but you're correct, it does not mention any type of surety bond being required to be taken out.
Madam Chair, could we ask legal a question? Just a real quick question.
If there's no objection to going out of session, we will check with legal.
My question is, does this already exist? Like, is a surety bond required now?
Okay.
There's nothing in Chapter 13 that's dealing with the public charter schools, but there may be something that's general application, and I'll look and see about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're out of
Commissioner Robinson.
session, any other questions for legal? All right. Yes, Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is not for legal. Since we're out of session, I don't think you can call me out of order. I did neglected to recognize Ms. Kelly Johnson, who's the Clinton City School Director of Schools, and she's in our audience. Would you please make her welcome?
Yes, will you wave at us? Thank you so much for what you do and for being with us today. All right, if there's no other questions for yes.
Okay.
You
I don't
didn't-
have a question for
All right,
legal.
we will go back in session. And Representative Baum, did you want to make a comment?
I was going to update my answer. I've got good news. Although my bill does not address surety bonds, evidently they are already required by law in this situation.
All right. Well, and Representative Dixie disappeared. Okay. Members, well, let's see. Representative Harris, did you get your, okay. Any other questions while we are back in session? All right, seeing none, we'll go back. We're back in session. Would you like to make any other comments before we take action?
I do not have any additional ones. No.
All right, question has been called on the bill. Seeing no objection, all in favor of passing House Bill 2468, please say aye. Any opposed? No. Ayes have it. You go to GovOps.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Members, if you will recall, we moved item number 2 on our calendar a few spaces. So we will go back to House Bill 2153. Leader, you have a motion and a second on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Chairman Haston normally carries this bill. It is an administration bill, and I'm glad to stand in. He is over in Finance Sub, as all of you have the experience right now. Many of us are in multiple committees at once, so it's just kind of difficult to juggle everything, but happy to present this bill. This is an important update, really, to our standards in our K through 12 schools to ensure that computer program, computer science education,
Leader, may I interrupt you? I'm sorry to do that. Could you confirm for us the amendment that's with this bill? I hate to interrupt you, but I have 014160.
Yes, Madam Chairman, that is the amendment that makes the bill.
All right, we have a motion on the amendment, and all in favor of adding to the bill, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, we're in proper order with the amendment. Proceed, please. Forgive me for the interruption.
No, Madam Chairman, sorry about that. I should not have ran headlong into the description before we put the amendment on. But as amended, it would set rigorous standards for computer science education. It would require computer science education throughout K through 12 in various different ways, provide free professional development for Tennessee educators to kind of update and really dig into what we probably should have done 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, computers are how everything is run now. I mean, everything is run on technology. And our children many times know how to work our iPads and even our phones better than many of us do. But they need that professional education on it to take it to the next level so that when they hit the job force, they are ready, willing, and able to address any type of technology that they might meet there. So this just updates those standards to ensure that we are teaching computer science at every level of education.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I see Chairman Reagan's hand first. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I support this bill. I'll state that right up front. But I want to call to the attention of my colleagues as well as those watching online that we have a serious issue in our state, especially with numeracy, or if you will, math capability. Only 22% of our 8th graders are on grade level with their ability to work math. It's 27% in the 3rd grade. This computer science course that we're mandating here, which is much needed, I might add, because quite frankly, our society is going that way and we need to teach our children how to handle that. But computer science is itself very math intensive. So we're going to have to do something to ensure that our elementary school and grade school / middle school students get up on the step with their math proficiency in order for this computer science course to work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I agree wholeheartedly. And in fact, the State Board of Education will be tasked with establishing a comprehensive age-appropriate computer science education standard. And as part of that, I would hope that they would take those comments well into account and make sure that if you are teaching computer science, that you are creating a very good foundation for math as part of that. If you don't understand math, you can't truly understand how computers work. I mean, it is by definition controlled by math. I mean, in the entire world of computers, that's the language of computers. And so I would hope that they would develop as part of this curriculum a very rigorous math standard.
Thank you, Leader. Chairman White.
Thank you, Chair Lady. And I just want to say thank you, Leader Lambert, for carrying this along with Chairman Haston. And I also want to thank the administration. This bill was brought to me last year, but because of its fiscal note and the departments need to be engaged in all, a little bit more than what we can handle at the time. So thank you for doing this. I think this will be great for our schools and our young people. Thank you.
All right. Question's been called on the bill. Without objection, all in favor of House Bill 2153, please say aye. Any opposed? You pass on to Governor Ops.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Thanks for filling in. Members, that brings us back to item number 5 on our calendar today. House Bill 1077 by Representative Leatherwood. You have a motion and a second. And if you have an amendment, will you please share that number with us, please?
It does have an amendment, 013597.
All right. You have a motion on the amendment. Without objection, we'll add that to the bill. And you are now in the proper order to explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee. The amendment does make the bill, and what it does, it just simply allows the students' results on the state adapted benchmark assessment to also be a factor in determining whether or not to promote a student from third grade. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Members, we have a couple of people that would like to testify, I think, or I guess I'll just ask if you want to. I do have you on the list. And I see we have Charlie Buffalino with Department of Education. If you'll come forward. All right, and we'll take us out of session. Thank you. If you will, you know the procedure to introduce yourself and who you're with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Lady and members. Charlie Buffalino with Department of Education. I am joined by my colleague. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Lisa Coons, Chief Academic Officer for the Department of Education.
So we'll try to be brief in our opening comments. Both the department and the governor's office are opposed to this piece of legislation. Last year, under the Learning Loss Remediation and Student Acceleration Act, the General Assembly made a law to strengthen our options for students who are not reading proficiently at the end of third grade. And really what the purpose behind that law is to offer high quality opportunities for students to remediate and accelerate their learning so that they are prepared by the time they get to fourth grade. For students who are in that below category, so those students who are most behind in terms of third grade reading proficiency, and that is the group we are talking about under this piece of legislation, those students have to attend both a learning loss bridge camp in the summer and be provided a tutor for their fourth grade year in order to forego retention as one of their options. We believe very strongly in those two interventions as being really key to making up for some of that learning loss and getting caught up. Our concerns with this bill as proposed is that if we on the front end, and I'm sorry, I misspoke. This bill is talking about the approaching students. So not the below students I just mentioned, but those who are still not proficient in terms of third grade reading proficiency. Those students could take either of the two options that I was talking about. Nevertheless, those students are not proficient on third grade reading. And if we're going to take a group of students on the front end and say, you know, we're going to use a different instrument and possibly something that will show that a student's still not proficient on TCAP, but maybe these students don't have to do those things. We think we're removing high quality intervention opportunities that those students need to get caught up on grade level. There's been some discussion on different assessments and what sort of measures what, and I'll turn that over to my colleague, Dr. Coons. But for us, this isn't about third grade reading retention for third grade reading retention's sake. It's about giving high quality opportunities to our students who need them to get caught up and be on grade level so that they can succeed moving forward. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Coons.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss what the state adopted benchmark assessment system is and what it's intended to do. It really provides districts the opportunity to select one of the approved universal reading screeners that were approved by the state board in July. Those universal reading screeners are intended to measure how a student is progressing in reading in kindergarten through third grade. And it's about the ability to read text. It's about the ability to, was I able to read a grade level text? Was I able to understand basic questions? The Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment System actually measures something different. It measures whether or not a student can read, understand, take that knowledge that they built from that reading and apply it to our grade level standards, whether it's a written task where they're showing what they know on the written task, or whether it's a multiple choice. It's the ability to read, understand, and use standards with that knowledge. We believe that third grade is the first time students really do that well and are expected to do that well to be proficient. That's why the Tennessee The TN Ready assessment really measures that comprehensive set of standards that measures all of those things that a student is able to do to be proficient. The benchmark system is not intended to measure whether or not a student is proficient on standards. It measures whether or not a student can read on grade level and all the components that go into reading to be able to access that text. So can I put sounds into letters? Can I understand basic understanding? So we're talking about two different types of assessments when we're looking at this amendment.
And we're happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for that. Members, any questions for the department? Chairman White.
Thank you, Chair Lady. So what we did in January 2021 was set up this process to address third grade reading skills. It's a 3-year process, so this wouldn't take place, and there would not be the retention that a lot of we hear about until the end of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The law says that this portion of the law that we're talking about would go into effect at the end of the 22-23 school year. So we would be talking about students who are entering third grade next year would be that first cohort.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Sapiki, you're next.
Thank you for coming in. Dr. Coons, can you talk about how, if this bill would pass, what negative ramifications it could have for those approaching students that would now otherwise not have to go to those summer school, those summer camps or get those tutors? How detrimental could this be if we pass this bill to their learning?
I think it's tremendously detrimental because students who can read on grade level doesn't mean I can do the things I need to do with reading and do the things the standards expect me to do. It just means I can access the reading text at my grade level. Those students wouldn't receive interventions, and being able to apply that reading knowledge and be able to do that, that's what we expect students to do in their upper grades as they build through 4th through 8th grade, is really apply that meaning. If they don't get that intervention in their early grades, it holds them further and further behind because they're focusing on how to read the text, not how to understand and use the text. So it pulls that student further behind. And we see that in our assessment results, is that a student who's behind in 3rd grade continues to fall further and further behind with that work.
Yes, Chairman.
So in the statistical evidence that my colleague to my left here said earlier, we do see a decline in proficiency from 3rd grade to 8th grade currently in reading proficiency. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
Yes, Chairman.
just stop me whenever you want me to.
Go ahead.
It seems like and Chairman White and I worked very hard on this literacy bill along with other members up here to get this in a position to address the students that are first of all below. And this bill doesn't address them. But the students that are approaching is not on grade level. Approaching is not on grade level, which means they're not performing at the expectation level that we expect of on grade level. My concern with this bill is we've just passed the literacy bill. We've just gone through 1 year of summer school and we're in the current year of tutoring. Question for the department is, are we seeing benefits from the summer camps and the tutoring going on right now with those students that are approaching?
We are seeing benefits from summer programming. We did do an analysis of that and are seeing benefits for our students who are in summer programming. And we just received our second winter benchmark back from this year, and with the tutoring and working through those results, we are definitely seeing improvements from our students.
Last question.
Yes, Chairman.
So in reality, if we allow an LEA to promote a student based off the last benchmark, in reality, they could have failed the first 2 benchmarks, passed the last one, and that could be used to promote them to the next grade level. So that last benchmark, that doesn't measure everything that we measure in TCAP. Is that correct?
That is correct. It only measures a portion of the child's abilities.
And Chairman, if I will, in that scenario you laid out, they could also then not score proficient on the TCAP and would still be able to be promoted under this.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for being here. This may be a little skewed from the actual bill, but you're both educational professionals and have been in the education business for years and years. Would you agree that probably the single most important factor on whether children up to the age 3 or whatever learn to read is having an adult, a family member, mom or dad, grandmom, granddad, brother, sister, uncle, somebody that will sit down with them and read with them on a daily basis and go over stuff with them.
I'll start and I'll let you sort of add on. I think it's tremendously important, Representative. I don't know if I'd say it is the most important factor, but so much of what we try to do with some of these interventions, tutoring, summer camps, is to provide that additional support if it wasn't there. And so I think that's a critical component. We have done a lot of work in our early literacy work to work with parents directly to try to provide some of these resources, and Dr. Coons can speak to that a little bit, but would agree with you that that is just a tremendously important head start, jump start that really can help make a lot of these things easier as students progress through the education system.
I would agree with Mr. Bufalino, who said it's an important factor that the family is involved. And it's definitely something we're working on through the Reading 360 initiative. We're visiting schools, donating 20,000, getting ready to read backpacks for families and strategies to support that. I think this is separate because families are important, but there still are challenges that students have in being able to read and be proficient. And it's important for them to get that support from a school-based opportunity.
Yes, Representative Griffey.
Thank you both very much for that. I really just wanted that sort of public service message to get out there because I don't know if we emphasize that enough. And all Tennesseans, we need to make an effort to try to tackle this problem and get our reading scores up for our third grade students. And I hope everyone will make an effort and think about that and keep it at the front of the forethought of mind. So thank you all for your efforts. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And along those lines of one of my favorite colleagues, what if the parents can't read?
That's a great question. As part of those getting ready to read backpacks and our decodables, we have strategies and QR codes that help the family engage in those sounds first activities without proficiency in reading. So it actually builds the opportunity for family members to sit right side by side with their child and learn together, because those QR codes that the phone can read give the instructions and give the reading for the families. It's a really exciting part of our new initiative that we're working on around simple moments for families.
And I appreciate that. I just think it's important to note that, let's be careful not to just point the finger at parents, because we have generations of individuals in our state, across the entire state, that have maybe not received either the interventions or the education that we're supposed to deliver to them. And so thank you for that.
Yes, Representative Sparks.
Just want to ask, I know this is important. We got to get this right. I'm a little torn on this piece of legislation. I brought up, I think it was last week or in finance, our prison budget's increased $600 million since I was elected up here. Now it's about $1.3 billion. So we got to get this right. But, trying to reach these students, there's a lot of them from broken homes. And I like what Bruce is talking about, Representative Griffey's talking about, but there's a lot of families that don't have time to read their kids. They're too busy working. A lot of them in socioeconomic high levels of poverty. But what are we doing that's creative to get these young men and women interested in reading? I think the tutoring is awesome. I've heard good things about the tutoring. I see some people in the audience that I've reached out to that echoed those sentiments. But what are we doing that's creative to really get these kids interested in reading?
One of the exciting opportunities that we have this summer is we had over 10,000 teachers do the early reading training, which was really geared at this concept that we're talking about early reading. We will be launching a secondary literacy training that helps our secondary teachers really think about what is important in literacy, how to support literacy in their classrooms, and how to engage and support those students who are struggling and re-engage back in some of the reading work that's expected in their coursework. So we're excited to expand what we know is working and what has worked in our early grades up to our higher grades to really re-engage our students and make sure they have the supports from their teachers in that coursework.
Yes, ma'am. And I know folks are working hard. I just don't want to be here in 4 or 5 years and we don't even move the needle. We spend all this money. I know I'm not alone in my feelings on this, but I just want to share a quick story. My wife has done substitute teaching and teaching for years. I watched her in a Sunday school class it was about a year or two ago. There was a young man that was really rough. I mean, just a little 4-year-old, just acting up. So I was so concerned, I went back to check on her. And the little boy was so patient, just looking up at my wife. And I was like, what's going on? And my wife, I said, what'd you do to this child? She said, well, I just got him involved. And I run across a quote, if I could share it, Chairman. It says, tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I'll learn. And that was from Albert Einstein. But I appreciate what y'all do. And everybody has passion for education. I just don't want to see us another 12 years where our prison budget's $2 billion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, seeing no others, I will. I just, reading is so vital, and it's the key to our freedom and your prosperity. And I just want to make a plea to anyone listening that there's no case too hard, no matter how old you are or where you are. There is someone that wants to help you learn to read. And do not be ashamed. Please take advantage of what we have here in our state, because we want to see everyone succeed. And that's an important part. So I'll just make that plea to anyone else out there. And thank you. I don't see anyone else on the list for our Department of Ed. So thank you for coming forward. And we thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Lady.
We have another group that would like to, do you want to be in session before? All right. Now, our next group that would like to testify is, we have Kelly Johnson, who is with the superintendent with Clinton County Schools, and Susie Boyd, Clinton City. I'm sorry, that's on my paper wrong then, Clinton City. And then we have Susie Boyd, who is the literacy coach at Clinton City Schools, and Ben Torres, who is our TSBA representative. And again, even though I said all that, will y'all please say it for the record?
I'm Kelly Johnson, Director of Schools for Clinton City Schools.
I'm Susie Boyd. I'm the literacy coach. Tom? Okay. Susie Boyd. I'm the literacy coach for Clinton City Schools.
Ben Torres, Tennessee School Boards Association.
Thank you all for being here and for giving your testimony. Are there any questions first from our members for this group? Well, we will let you start.
Okay, I guess I will start. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I'm here to represent not only Clinton City Schools, but to represent districts across the state of Tennessee. We thank you for your work that you have done placing an emphasis on literacy. It is one of the most important things that we can do as public schools. I just want to give a few highlights on where directors and school systems stand with regards to using one data point to make such an important decision. Students in third grade are 8 and 9 years old, and this is the first time that they have taken a standardized test. Learning to take a multiple choice test is a genre within itself that requires quite a bit of instructional time to teach them how to take that assessment. The current TN Ready ELA assessment is not 100% reading. It is English language arts. Last year, 60% of the test was directly on reading through multiple choice questions only. 40% of the test was on conventions, which is grammar and writing. The approaching category is a huge category ranging from 33rd percentile to 68th percentile. When you look at the top end, we are not arguing about below basic kids, absolutely, but there is a subset of approaching kids that are on track to score 21 or better on the ACT, and those are not the children that we need to be having retention conversations with. The benchmark that we're requesting to use has been state approved and has a standardized administration already in place for us to be able to use with validity. In fact, TDOE and their rough draft of the waiver process has placed this very assessment on their waiver process. So we are simply requesting to use it on the front end. We're not trying to keep children out of summer school. We can invite anyone to summer school. We just don't want to have detrimental, punitive conversations about retention based on one data point. This assessment is in state law, so if it's good enough for state law, it should be good enough for us to use to hold retention conversations with students. I think we are all in agreement about the third grade reading on grade level. You just referred to the prison. The research on retention is clear. It is not a valid intervention. It decreases a child's ability or chances of graduating from high school, and it increases their chances of going to prison. And we can think that parents are going to take advantage of summer school and the tutoring, but we are boots on the ground and we see how we are struggling to get children to participate in summer school right now. Our retention rates will skyrocket, and we very well might stand trading one problem for another. It just gives students the opportunity to show what they know in multiple data sources. Even Tea and Promise and middle college applications allow for multiple pathways. So if it's good enough for high school students to have multiple pathways and multiple data points, why would we not give that opportunity to our 8-year-olds? We are here all wanting the same end game, but we are boots on the ground, and I'm pleading with you today that our children in third grade are coming to us with extreme anxiety and depression. The anxiety that comes associated with a high stakes testing is enormous, and placing that amount of emphasis on a multiple choice test that is only 60% reading could be detrimental to our students. We're just asking for a state approved benchmark that is 100% reading to be allowed to be used so we can see children and how they respond on multiple days. It's not increasing the high stakes testing. I know that has been said, but if you allow students multiple opportunities to show what they know, it actually decreases the high stake testing that will be associated with Tea and Ready. So I just urge you, I know that you want to see how the bill has played out, but these are children. These are children, and we need to make decisions and get it right on the front end instead of waiting to see how it plays out. And we've got a set of kids that we did not take care of and give them a safety net to fall under with multiple sources of data. So I appreciate your time and your consideration, and will answer any questions.
Yes, if we could hear from all three of you, and then we'll take questions from our members. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit about grade level reading and what grade level reading means to a literacy coach. So it's not one number on a multiple choice test. When I stop and think hard about that, I first have to go to our state document that on the very end of that document, it tells us that third grade students should be reading in a range from 420 to 820. And that's based on Lexile from an easier Lexile, easier reading level to a more complicated and complex. I think about reading, and I know that it has 5 components. There's a phonological piece to it, being able to hear sounds, phonics piece, being able to look at the words on the page and crack the code. It's understanding words, it's vocabulary, it's fluency, it is reading with accuracy, it is reading with expression, it is reading at a good rate. Fluency can't be measured on a multiple choice test. It just cannot. And ultimately, it's the comprehension piece. And there are different levels of comprehension. There's the very literal level, just understanding and getting the gist. And we want more than that for our students. We want it to be at a much deeper level. We want them to be able to analyze text, think about it critically, and to analyze it, be able to draw conclusions. All of that has to take place simultaneously when they're reading. They read the words and then have to construct meaning from what they've read. But it's just more than that, because there's lots that affects comprehension. The genre, is it a narrative? Is it a story that has a causal chain where there's a character there's a setting, there's problem, the problem is solved, a beginning, middle, and end. That's what a lot of our third grade students are really familiar with. But they also have to read informational text, which is completely different. It has a set of vocabulary that is very specific. And if a child comes with not a lot of background knowledge, a lot of poverty kids come without world knowledge, but they're having to read a text on canning day, canning preserves, or an informational text on the high frequency pitches that whales use to communicate. If they come with no knowledge about that, that very much affects what they're able to comprehend on a reading passage. You have to also think about things like the sentence structure of the text that they're reading. There's just a lot more to reading than answering a multiple choice test. If I were to be asked to assess a student's ability, I would do a lot of things. I'd first start with a word reading test. From that, I'd have to look at the errors that were made and decide, do I need to assess some phonics? Then I would do a vocabulary test. I would have to listen to that child read and note the fluency, what mistakes are being made. Then from there, I might go to a reading passage with some comprehension questions. But it's just so much more complex than reading a text in 80 minutes. 80 minutes, guys. 80 minutes. They have to sit there, read 2 passages, answer 20 questions, and write to 2 different writing prompts. So that's a lot to ask of an 8-year-old. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have much to add except districts are just simply asking to use another state-approved measure for promotion from 3rd to 4th grade. That's what districts are asking for. I mean, you've heard the experience at the district level from individuals that have to deal with students on a daily basis and address these needs for students. So that's simply what districts are asking for.
Thank you. All right. We do have a list of folks that would like to ask you all a question, if you don't mind staying a little longer there. Thank you. Chairman White?
Thank you, Chair Lady. Okay, I'm glad we're having this discussion, and far be it from me to disagree with anything you say because you're boots on the ground every day. So let me ask a couple questions from our perspective. Do you or do you not agree with this? We keep hearing that only 34% of our 3rd graders are reading on grade level. Is that a true number, or where does that come from?
Can I answer? Each state
Thank
sets
you.
its own cut scores. So Tennessee has chosen to set its cut scores for on track, mastered, and approaching. The approaching is a very large category. It is not, I do not believe that you can equate grade level reading with where you fall on a T and Ready assessment. Reading is much more complex than that.
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you. So here's my question. I've been on this committee for 9 years, and every single year we continue to talk about the lack of 3rd graders reading on grade level. And so 2 years ago, the committee said, you know, at what point are we going to take this serious? And that's where the special session came from, the legislation on the 3rd grade retention. And we realized that it raised a lot of issues. So we put in place the summer school and everything. Y'all know all that. So my question is, are we not doing something right in K1 and 2 so that we're not backing up in 3rd grade? Because we still know we do have an issue with reading, or it wouldn't be in front of us every day. Is that a fair statement?
I think we all want to see improvements in literacy. I can't stand before you as an educator and say that we can accurately 100% with reliability and validity assess it through a multiple choice standardized assessment in one sitting. And what would look like proficient right now, if we're using T and Ready, what would look proficient in Tennessee in another state might be approaching or might be mastered. Each state sets its own cutoff scores. And so I don't know that just by using T and Ready that we are getting the most accurate data that we need regarding reading on grade level, because reading on grade level and being proficient on T and Ready are two completely different things.
Okay, one last.
Yes, Chairman.
So your opinion on the legislation we passed, we had it put a 3-year window where the retention will not take place until the end of 22-23. So with the things of the bridge camps, the summer school, tutoring, do you think that to let that play out, is there harm in letting that play out? Do we see if that's has any effect on what we're doing before we change horses in the middle of the stream again?
I don't think directors are ever arguing about intervention for children. If I feel like that a child or a teacher feels like a child and we've got multiple sources of data other than one multiple choice assessment that's only 60% reading, I would advocate for summer school or tutoring. I think where the concern is when you throw on an 8-year-old that punitive measure of, if your parents don't choose to do this for you, we're going to retain you and we're going to decrease your chances of graduating high school. We're going to increase your chances of going to prison, and we're going to take a hit on your self-concept that you're never going to recover from. And so we have the authority as a district to send anybody to summer school that we want to, and to give tutoring in Clinton City. If you're below the 50th percentile, you're in intervention for 45 minutes a day. So we have the flexibility of doing that as we speak. But the retention conversation, the minute that you bring retention into the picture, what I would hope is that parents would say, yes, we'll go to summer school and we're going to take advantage of the tutoring. But last year's experience, and we are trying to recruit for summer school this year. And the number of parents who are refusing to say no, that will continue to say no and allow their child to be retained, I think is going to be shocking to all of us. And that's just the reality that we live in. But we have the right to give anybody intervention without the threat of retention.
Well, thank you. And I really do appreciate y'all's hard work. It's not an easy job, and we're just trying to figure out how to help you, but I know it's a challenge.
All right, next on our list is co-chair Lady Weaver.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Thank you, Ms. Susie. Thank you, Mr. Ben, for being here. I appreciate the fact that you're giving the boots on the ground scenario. I've been listening to, I've been on this committee since I've been here, and I'm listening to something that's giving me, and I don't know if this is something we can do at this point, probably not, but it's something we must really consider. We have contracts with companies, corporate contracts with companies that make these tests, and they're in the millions and gazillions of dollars. And there's jobs to protect, and there's things to put in place in our classroom. And I will say that I would like to see a recipe change here. We can't, I go to my district when I tour the schools, and my teachers tell me, Terry Lynn, our kids are reading. And I mean, there's some kids who aren't, but by golly, a good teacher knows how to teach their children, and they also know what tests work and what don't. And we constantly sit up here and we spend millions of dollars on contracts that write something from a corporate perspective, and they have no clue or no idea what goes on boots on the ground. And I wanted to ask the sponsor the genesis for why he wanted this bill, why he was bringing this bill forward, and I'm understanding it. And it's probably too late for us to change in the middle of the stream. But if we constantly get these numbers that say our kids are failing, are we protecting corporate contracts and corporate jobs? And are we really about the kids? Because if we're really about the kids, and we've been doing this for years, then something isn't right. And I'm starting to hear that from what the department is doing, what the various people are doing, and it's setting our kids up for failure. And if we have to set our kids up for failure to protect jobs, and lobbyists and departments, we're not doing our children any justice whatsoever. And that's all I want to say. I appreciate the sacrifice and the efforts our teachers put in to eyeball to eyeball with these kids. You should be making the tests. You should be the ones writing these tests. Used to, when I was in school, a teacher gave me a test. Maybe you members can attest to this as well, no pun intended. But that teacher would give a test on a Friday, and on Monday I had my grade. I knew where I was. My teacher knew where I was. The teacher knows where their kids are, not some corporate entity from out of state that comes and sits and gets our money every stinking budget year, and we pay them $60 million, $65 million, and they don't have a clue how to teach a child how to read. I guess they probably don't even read to a child. So my suggestion is we are tracking we have the wrong dog in the wrong hunt. I might have said that wrong, but it doesn't matter. The point is, we're not doing our children any justice. If we're setting our kids up to fail and keeping all these programs in place, it's just to keep the gasoline in them, and that's no pun either because we're running out of that. I'm just saying we need to get back to the basics, and our teachers in our schools, they know, our school directors, they know how to teach. For gosh sakes, it's really simple. Just let them write the test, let them teach, and little Susie will find out her grade on Monday. End of story. Thank you.
Can I make one comment to what she
Please,
said?
please, yes.
Just absolutely, we can't narrow down a child's knowledge. You cannot, as much as we want to, create a factory model for schools. These are human beings that are multifaceted, that are different from day to day. Research tells us that teachers, when they're grading an essay, depending on their mood, can sway up to 2 years on how they grade that essay, depending on their mood. So it's not fair for us as to put an 8-year-old in a situation that, given a day where they have to sit for 80 minutes without getting up and concentrate on testing, to let that determine instructional decisions that we make. From day to day, we have plethora of data. We have to look at multiple sources of data because each assessment has its own strengths and weaknesses. But my concern about this bill as written, despite, contrary to what Department of Ed said in subcommittee, we do not get proficiency scores until July. We get raw scores in May. Raw scores tell us nothing. It tells you how many questions the kid got correct. That's it. It is not attached to proficiency in any way. So unless some major changes happen, we don't get those proficiency scores until July, when the window of summer school is already over. And so that there you have limited, for your below basic kids, you've limited the opportunity for them to even attend summer school. Raw scores tell us nothing, and that's all we get in May, unless something significantly changes.
Thank you very much. We don't have anyone else on the list. Representative Manis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Man, you guys make a great case. Thank you all for being here from East Tennessee, from one East Tennessee into another. So thank you all for being here. I think I heard you reference one time only high stakes. And it's my understanding they're not being forced to be retained. So it's not one time only. And help me understand, I think they're given opportunities for high quality interventions. Is that not the way you guys see it?
Correct. It is, you attend summer school or you attend summer school and tutoring. There are some options there, yes. We are not arguing giving children help. We are arguing attaching a punitive if you do not do this. And really, it's not up to the child. If your parents choose to not make you do this, then we're going to retain you. And the research just is clear on retention that is not an effective intervention.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess my challenge is, as my colleague Chairman Spicky said, Chairman Spicky and Chairman White and many others spent lots of time on going through this process, and then we spent lots of time with the extraordinary session. I don't know where this conversation might have been when we were going through that conversation and that discussion. My apprehension is, are we going to give it time to work? I promise you, I understand what you're saying, but do we change it before we've really given it an opportunity, or do we wait and let it play out and then certainly take into consideration the things that you're bringing before us today, which again, I totally respect. So I guess that would be my question and my concern at this point.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I think my only response to that is that we aren't dealing with just a factory product. We're dealing with children. And I think we have to get it right on the front end. As far as, this is a state approved, we're not coming wanting to do our own thing. We have a state approved assessment that is in state law that has standardized measures that we have to adhere to across the state that measures 100% reading. So why, if all of those things are in place, if it is in state law and we are mandated to give it, why are we giving it if we can't use it? And if it's good enough for a TDOE waiver, when a parent makes a waiver to TDOE, why couldn't we use that on the front end? I mean, we can still tell parents that that we recommend summer school and highly recommend, but even with the state law and the retention law, we can't force them to go to summer school. We can't force them to tutoring. We'll just have to retain them. And so I think if we were coming to you today saying, let us just use our anecdotal records, I could see where there would be a concern. But this is a state approved. In fact, it's in state law that we have to give it. And the department clearly is okay using it in a waiver. So why can't we be trusted as districts to give our children the benefit of the doubt? And some of that is one-on-one. So you are listening to a child read. And it's not the teacher, because that's part of our standardized, it has to be another person for validity. But that way you're getting a full comprehensive picture from a foundational skills, then to also how it's playing out into standards, and you can make a good decision for the child.
Great. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
that. Thank you.
Can I make a comment about that benchmark assessment?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. When you think about that comprehension component of that measure, it doesn't surprise me from a literacy perspective that a child may not pass that first one, because the first time they take it, it's August. They're coming from second grade, but they're tested on third grade skills. Okay? So it doesn't surprise me that they might not pass that first assessment. They're entering third grade not having had any instruction on third grade standards or skills. My hope in my perfect literacy world is that the second time they take that benchmark, that they do a little bit better because they've had some instruction on third grade reading standards / skills. Then by the time that third one rolls around, they've had a whole year of instruction, and those standards have been spiraled numerous times through. It doesn't surprise me at all that a child could possibly not pass those first two, but pass the last one. Just knowing that from an instructional standpoint, I can see how that can happen.
And if they pass the third one, we've done our job.
Yeah.
They're within national norms for third grade. So the teacher has done their job if they pass the last one.
And those benchmarks progressive get more difficult. Starts out at a low Lexile, 470, and the last one ends at 630 by spring. So it's getting up to the high end of the Lexile range in third grade.
All right, thank you. As your chairman, I need to remind everyone, we are at a 10-minute warning. We have to be out of this room by 12:30. So we have a couple of more remarks to be made, asked to be recognized for while we're out of session. Chairman Sapicki. All right. And next on the list, Chairman White.
Very quickly, I was just going to make an unpaid political announcement. The new funding formula that's coming before us in TISA, we are going to put more money in our K through 3. So I hope that that will help us address. Don't answer this question now, but what do we need to do in K1 and 2 with the extra money coming in so that we can not be addressing third grade so much? Thank you.
All right, with that, we've exhausted our list. And I thank each of you so much again for being here and for your testimony and your time and for what you do. Thank you. All right, we're back in session. Going back to our list from being in session, Representative McKenzie, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank everyone. Really great arguments and points and illustration. But I kind of go back to the 10 years ago when I was on county commission. There was a big push, and it was a truth in advertisement push. And I remember Pat Summit being a leader in that, basically saying we're lying to and about our children in terms of where they are. And I know bad words came as a result of that, but we were. At the end of the day, in the state of Tennessee, we're not where we are by whatever benchmark we want to put forth. We're not where we want to be or need to be. I remember when I first joined this committee, the chair of the subcommittee talked about getting to the top, and that's where we want to be. And within 2 weeks of me being here, we had a special session on education, and I crossed party lines because I believe that third grade literacy, however you measure it, we're not where we need to be. However you measure it, statewide, we're not nearly where we need to be. And we need to do some things to get us where we need to be. Take some tough time. I don't consider summer school reading as punitive. I don't consider it when they're providing the transportation. That child, something will be done with that child during that summer period of time. Rec center, something's going to be done with that child because most of us work. So we're going to provide transportation, we're going to provide lunch, and we're going to give them enhanced learning during that time. And then we're going to have group tutoring, then individual tutoring. I'm sorry, urban, rural, suburban, if our child's not learning, those are some great tools that we're going to put in their hands by the experts. And so to say after that, that's a punitive process, I just disagree. So I'm going to step off my soapbox here. There's a lot more I can say, but I do want to ask the sponsor of the bill, why bring this now when we haven't even taken one iota worth of data? Why bring this measure about these approaching children now? Why not bring it if we're failing? I'm great. Or if we're penalizing kids that are going to make 23s and 24s on ACTs, fine. But that's not where we are. 23s, 24s, not where we are today, and we're not near there. So why bring this piece of legislation now?
Yes, Representative Leatherwood.
Good question, and glad you asked it because I was reflecting on that during the testimony. You say when we don't have one iota of data, I would actually say we have 2 or 3 iotas of new data now. When we look at, as was mentioned, summer school attendance and who attends, who doesn't. I know many of y'all probably don't know, but I used to be a teacher, and we'd have parent-teacher conference. Invariably, it was the great students' parents who would show up. The ones that I really needed to talk to never showed up, which was part of the problem. I've had trouble holding down a job over the years. I sold insurance as well, and this is actually to your point. One of the things we would have, and the law actually accounted for, was buyer's remorse or buyer's reflection. I could sell them that insurance policy, but within 30 days, they have time to reflect on it, and they could get all their money back. They could make a decision after a little time of reflection. We could have passed this bill to be implemented like so many of our bills are as soon as it was passed, but we didn't. We left time for reflection and implementation. Well, when you do that, just like other contracts, like I mentioned, you take advantage of that time to reflect and adjust accordingly. We have some data. It's been a while since we passed this. And I think the data indicates that we need just a tad more reflection. Obviously, this has become a controversial bill. It shouldn't be. It's really not that complex. I think I've answered your question there on why now, because we do have more information. We have had time to reflect. This isn't a major change. There are options in the law now for people to decide whether or not to promote that child. All we're looking at here is not sinking the ship of education if this passes. That would not happen. What we're looking at, as it was testified to, approaching is a large range. Looking at that higher end of that approaching group and giving another measuring tool, a state-approved measuring tool, which measures whether or not someone can read on grade level. Everybody here has been talking about reading. What we're doing is talking about a test. This test, state-approved test, it measures reading grade level. If they're not reading at grade level based on this test, well, we wouldn't have the option for holding them back, but they are.
Question's been called. We are out of time. So, members, without objection, we will vote now on our bill before us. House Bill 1077. And everyone's awake, right? Don't need anybody to scream, but let your yes be yes and your no be no. And all in favor of passing the bill, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Noes prevail. And bill fails. Thank you. We are. Before I adjourn, the rest of our calendar will be rolled to next week. Thank you, and we are adjourned.